Dad, why Thomas lame?
Well, I'll tell you what, if we watch this video, maybe we'll understand why Thomas has all of a sudden turned green.
Dad, I like it when Thomas.
I wouldn't get too attached to this one. It's got some major problems.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the first cab off the rank. It's a Tomas and Friends roller coaster. I'm reading the box there. It says self-assembly, hands-on brain, family companion, enlightenment thinking. As always with the Dark Side toys, this box does not disappoint. It's got lots of lovely artwork on there to entice you to come in and play. There's a bit of a synopsis of what's inside the box here. And this play set only cost me $20. On the end of the box it's telling me lovely car, flip down the track 360 degrees, and also lovely car driving on the track, happy. Oh, when I purchased this toy, there was actually one on display. It looked fairly impressive, a lot of children looking at it. Oh, come out of the box, looks sort of interesting. Here she comes. Whoa! There's a plastic bag full of goodies in here. Let's rip this open. Rah! I need all the strength I've got to get this. There's some stickers I'm going to put on the playset. That's going to make it look all nice and happy. And there's some little choo-choos. Looks like Thomas said he's number 2 in this set, I don't know why. And there's some flags and there's some track. And let's do it. This piece of Dark Side wonderment requires 2 AA batteries. There they are in there, and they are not Duracells. The back of the box actually gives you the instructions on where the pieces go. So I think it's something like that piece there goes somewhere like that, and the reverse for the other side. Well, it might be a nice time to say hello to the little engines on this set. There's number 1. For some reason, number 1 is red. James isn't number 1, is he? Let's put him on the playset. There's a little place we can put the trains. Number 2 is, well, blue. I suppose that's a number 2 for, well, whoever's number 2, but that looks like Thomas to me. I don't know why he's number 2 all of a sudden. He can sit there, and here comes number 3. Number 3, well, it's a very, very interesting interpretation of number 3 engine. Well, it's time for the demo. Let's turn it on. There's one of them horrid sound chips. Oh, fancy that. Okay, let's put the trains on. Number 1. Go for it. Number 2. Go for it. And number 3. Whoa, that's like magic. How are those trains magically flying in the air? It's quite an impressive little set. It's actually quite a clever little playset. Inside that track which is sending them up, there's actually a spring which is, I suppose, motorised, and the spring catches on the bottom of the trains and sends them on their merry way. Whoa! And hopefully there's a closer look at that spring in action and the way it captures the trains and sends them on the way. Well, I just shoot a bit of slow motion of this crazy little playset. And it's quite astonishing how fast the trains are when they come out of that, well, loop-de-loop, that 360. It's one of those playsets you can just sit down and watch all day long, and I call them Guinness toys. And I say Guinness toys because there was that old saying, I like to watch. Probably relates to an ad that the younger children would not even relate to. Well, what's interesting here is I've only had this toy up and running, I suppose, for about 10 minutes, and I can hear that it's starting to slow down, it's starting to wear out the batteries, and as I find so often with these knockoff toys, there's a total mismatch of power requirements to run the toy. I suppose the upside to all this is at least it worked out of the box, it was pretty easy to assemble, so I'm giving it some high points there, even though I should be giving this thing no points because it's a knockoff. Oh, quiet, you noisy beast. Maybe we should take a look at the trains again and work out why they stick onto the track here. And it's because they've got that little pin underneath which catches the spring. And you're probably also asking, why don't the trains fall out when they're upside down? Well, that's easy to explain as well. Well, here's one of the little trains. That's the pin that runs in the spring. And if we look on the top, we'll see there are these flanges here and those flanges there keep it within the rails. How clever is that? So all in all, that's quite an interesting little piece of Dark Side Thomas. Well, next up is this Talking Thomas toy. I think I paid around $10 each for these. Actually, I bought two of them. I bought two of them for a very good reason. We'll see that very soon. And I bought these from a shop. Well, let's say it wasn't the dark markets that you normally find this stuff. It was a place where, well, normal retailers reside. On the top of the box, there's some illustrations there that show me what this train can do. It can move, its eyes and mouth move, and does it have smoke? Is this a smoking Thomas? On the end of the box, there's quite an interesting read. Let's go in and read it. Flashing top lights with icy sound, bump and go, eruption of smoke. Yeah. So let's come and get these guys out and let's have some fun. I do love keeping the boxes that these guys are in. And one of them I'll show you the reason why I bought two. I'll get to that very shortly. Don't think I've forgotten. Yeah. Bit of a fugly Thomas, but nevertheless, it's another one for my Dark Side collection. And just looking down the chimney there, that looks like there's some sort of smoker in there. Very curious. Okay, let's get to the reason why I purchased two. And let's pick up the one, which has the reason why I purchased the second one. And if we look at this component here, and let me come in a bit closer, I'm not sure how well you're going to see it. But the wheel there is actually broken. It's got a big crack in it. There's a crack there. And I could see that on the outside. You can see that piece there. It's broken. Now, normally with toys, if it's, you look at people who collect toys, what they quite often do is they quite often search out the ones that are broken or got pieces missing or been mismanufactured and they are in box. And what you do with those is you do not take them out of the box. They are worth a lot of money if you find stuff which is false from the factory. Just as a general assessment of this toy, I'm not sure I've just spoken about the broken wheel, but I can see that it's got a very, very shoddy paint job. It's got some big seams on it which are open and the plastic on it's quite sharp. If you're a child playing with this, you could easily cut your finger. And the fact that you just got bits of hardware which are so easily taken off and they're just flimsy. It's a real classic Dark Side build, and the reason why you should steer clear of these knockoff toys. Each of these Phaco Thomases take 3 AA batteries. What was very interesting when I purchased these, that was thrown in as a sweetener, some fake Duracells, as if that's going to help you. And what I will do is put my trusty old Aldi batteries in here, and we'll see how they sound. Okay, it's now or never. Let's see if it has all the functions they speak about on the outside of the box. There's that sound chip. I can see it's got flashing lights. It's got that funny face. Hey, it does smoke. I can see smoke. I see smoke. Can you see the smoke? It's got the works. It's actually not bad, considering I didn't pay very much for that. But remember, this thing's about to fall apart in my hands. Actually, it's got quite a lot of smoke. Okay, I've got my bump and go track ready. Let's let 'em rip. Double trouble. Well, one little piece of trouble I'm having here with the bump and go is the fact that the trains get caught up here. It just lifts them up enough so the bump and go wheel stops working. When it comes up here, it lifts it up just a tiny bit and then it stops working. If I push it away, it'll get going again. Well, let's turn off nearly all the lights and see how they look in the near darkness I've got. Fairly impressive for Disco Thomases. Bumping their way around and he's stuck. But at least we get to see how good his lights are. I had a helping hand from the other one for a moment. Let's just take a look at their fluctuating eyes and mouth, if you can hear me over the noise. And we might study the smoke as well. I've got to tell you what, for a little cheapo knockoff toy, the smoke effect from these is fantastic. Well, I'll come in and turn them off. I think there's a switch just under there. There's one off. Oh, there's the second one off. Sort of impressive for the fact that they've got all that smoking lights and fluctuating whatever. But sadly, these toys are literally falling apart on my hands. So that's why they're very dangerous. And that's another reminder not to touch the dark side. You know, when I'm out buying the Thomas and Friends knockoff toys, I often find lots of merchandise as well. And the strange thing about the Thomas and Friends knockoff merchandise is that the pricing of it is quite often very similar to the real McCoy licensed Thomas and Friends merchandise. Well, this here is a raincoat. It has a hoodie there, and I don't know, because I can feel it on my hands, this is just a really, really cheap build. It's really thin. There it is there. Looking at the tag here, let's take a look at this tag. Now what I want to see here is some licensing info. I can't see anything. All I can see is made in China. Let's take a look at some of the artwork on that. That's on the front. That there, quite impressive. Any little child would be impressed wearing that. On the other side on the front, it just says Thomas and Friends there, and there's Thomas next to a windmill. And this is the artwork on the back, and what's very interesting here is, apart from those three characters, we'll talk about them next, is this character here. This is a new character, I believe. I've seen it in the new Play Rail series, little biplane. I don't know its name. But there's also Duck, which is like a, we'll call it a resurrected character. So Duck's a very, very popular character. I know my son latched on to Duck, even though he never saw the very early series as well, of course, when he was younger. But there's Thomas there, who looks nice and big, and there is... Who's that? Is that... I don't know. I don't know that one. Sorry, guys. Just having a closer look there. Is that one of the narrow gauge engines, or is that someone new that I know nothing about? And the other clanger in all this is, look at the scaling. I mean, Thomas looks like a giant engine there. Duck's this little tiny miniature engine next to Thomas, and that one there, whoever. And there's that, of course, that biplaner. I don't know who that is as well. I'm not very helpful here, am I? And while we're thinking of wetness and wearing raincoats, there was also this knockoff umbrella. And what is very interesting with this one here, and it's the thing that I often talk about, is that if you saw that on a piece of merchandise, you'd sort of think, well, that looks like Thomas and Friends. I paid a lot of money for that umbrella from memory. I think it was $7. But if you look on the other side here, nah. I don't think that has anything to do with the real McCoy Thomas and Friends franchise. Even though, from that, you'd be thinking, well, maybe it does. I know there is some real McCoy umbrellas that the Thomas and Friends franchise does. Let's open this up and see what it looks like. And also, there's also this little whistle here. I suppose you whistle that when you're in trouble. When the umbrella fails on you, you whistle that saying, my umbrella's just failed. I remember as a kid I used to love umbrellas. I think it was because of the way they're so mechanical. I love opening them up. What's interesting here with the artwork, let's go in close and look at the finer detail of the artwork there. There's all these little recurring patterns of Thomas and Friends mainly. I don't know if they'd be ripped from some real McCoy merchandise. It's quite an interesting pattern, that. And, you know, all sorts of things going on there. Interesting to look at. Some of the bigger things there, it says full steam ahead. And it's got that there, Thomas and Friends. And then it repeats the pattern around full steam ahead and Thomas and Friends there. What's sort of interesting here is I could take that down the street and have a boy holding it on a rainy day. No one would notice that it's a knockoff item. The fact that I know it is because of where I purchased it and the price. And for the fact that it's lacking that very important licensing tag, which would say licensed to Hit Entertainment. In my dark side wanderings, I also found these very unusual little watches. And I might have to turn the lights out and press a button on these so you can see their little functions. There's no licensing info on these little watches, and when I bought these, there was Dora the Explorer, there was Spider-Man, there was Batman, there was absolutely anything that's popular with children was done in the style of these watches. To see the magic of these lights, I'll put up a little projection sheet and I will turn the lights off so you can see the effect properly. Ooh, it's dark in here. Okay, it's dark and scary. Let me get this watch here and push the right button and it projects that, and it looks out of focus because what it's projecting is out of focus. Let me get the red one. There's red one there. Let me see what it projects. It's a bit sharper, that one, but still it's a bit blurry in the eyes. How's that for a bit of Thomas joy? I'm just thinking back when I purchased these watches and those hats and the bag and the umbrella and the raincoat. It all came from the same shop and the person was charging top dollar. I got a funny feeling they were $7 each. And like everything was sort of based either $5 or $7. And it was absolutely ridiculous. They wouldn't bargain. And it was a real insight into just how greedy people get when they have this knockoff stuff. Possibly one of the things that I've seen most often in knockoff places is Thomas and Friends bags. This is no exception. This one's got a bit of plastic relief. It's a bit just cheap and nasty looking. Let's look at the tag here. I'm looking for licensing info here. I can't see it. High Speed Adventures Thomas and Friends with a bit of a dodgy picture on the back. What do we see? Well, we see some sort of Chinese number, and that's about it. I mean, often with the knockoff stuff, once you just touch it, you can almost feel it. It's the cheap, nasty stuff. And what do I see inside? Do I see any licensing tag? All I see is that there. What does that say, guys? Are you surprised? Maybe if I do this, you can hear the quality. Listen to this. You know that sort of merchandise when it sounds like that? And then there's these caps, and they look sort of cool. You know, you sort of think, well, that's half impressive. And look at the design there. And it says Thomas there. And we're looking for labels that tell us it's from Thomas and Friends. And I can't see anything that says licensing info to hit. I can see a made in China there. Whoever makes those made in China labels must be a wealthy person. And you're sort of thinking, well, how can you go wrong? It's got a bit of Velcro there. It feels pretty robust and all the rest of it. I mean, what's wrong with buying something like that? It's a knockoff. But it's when you have a bit of a closer look, you start to see, well, the wheels are starting to fall off this wagon. And if you look at this, I suppose it's embroidery there, look at the way the type is done and look at the way the letters just don't look right. On the red cap's probably a better example. You look at the stitching here, there's a bit of stitching gone AWOL there, and it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look like what you'd find on the real McCoy Thomas item. And when I'm going around looking for the Thomas and Friends knockoff items, I notice other popular toys in knockoff form. Here's some Monster High dolls, and I think these were selling for about $5 each. And you're sort of thinking, well, why would you bother? These dolls are sort of, in a way, nothing like the real Monster High dolls. They're a different scale. There's no way that the costumes and the design are going to be the same as Monster High. But the packaging sort of, well, half shouts Monster High. And I've sort of got to wonder, will this ever stop? Will there ever be a cap put on these people that do these rogue items? I think the one thing I would say is that once a toy starts to get knocked off and gets, you know, all sorts of duplications done which are not licensed, it's a sign that the toy has become very, very popular. I mean, for me, a good sign of the knockoff aspect of this is look how roughly the stitching and everything's done on this doll. That's just a nightmare. Well, let's get this train back on track. Here is a Thomas and Friends playset. It's a train playset. It's a knockoff, of course. I was going and talking about other brands for a very good reason, because of a very similar style design but slightly different design train. There's a Ben 10, the Protector of Earth, the knockoff train. Let's mash these two together and have a ton of fun. Before I mash them together, let's have a quick look at the box artwork. It's always interesting looking at the boxes. To me, the boxes is where the money is. Hey, look at this. There's some different design trains. Well, that one there looks like the one which is inside this box. That one there looks like the same design as the Ben 10, but it's a Thomas and Friends variant. And just having a closer look there, that reminds me of Action Thomas. Do you remember when I mashed together Thomas and Action Chugger? Wasn't that exciting? Where's Action Thomas these days? And there's that variation there. It looks like some sort of, I don't know, garbage truck or farming version. And there's that set there, which is the same design train as this one, but it looks like it's got some sort of flexible track. And for those who are technically gifted, there is this explanation of how all this comes together. Okay, let's do a little bit of unboxing. I think these were $5 each when I purchased them. In fact, I'm sure it was. Geez, they feel cheap and nasty. That is because they are cheap and nasty. Let's get the Ben 10 one out, and then we'll have a very quick look at, well, the details of these trains. Okay, here's Thomas, or an interpretation of Thomas. I think first thing you can note is it had what I call Sticker Friday. The stickers were put on all wonky. Friday specials. There's his face there. Bit of a classic old face, that one, isn't it? For a bit of a knockoff. And what is interesting is there's a bit of a switch on the top here. I've actually put a battery in here, but I'll show you how to open these up. You sort of peel it open at the back, and I've got my trusty LD battery in there. And I mean, it just feels so shoddy and cheap and nasty. Oh, it's turning itself on. Turn off, turn off. Ah! It's interesting, when I turn it on, it seems to be geared fairly fast, and it's got some fairly wonky driving wheels. Guess what, guys? Thomas isn't a tank engine anymore, he's a tender engine, because this comes with a tender in this knockoff set. There's the coupling system, just a little hook there. There you go. Choo choo. And here's the carriage or caboose or brake van or whatever you want to call it, which comes with this very strange knockoff set. It just feels cheap and nasty. In fact, I could just reckon I could just crush it in my hand. I better not do that, because we need to see this running around the track. Well, here's the Ben 10 train. It's a very modern looking design. It's very much like the bullet train. It's the same as the Thomas. You just sort of peel it open to get the battery in there. There's a switch there. It just feels horribly cheap and nasty. Let's go and put the track together and give these a spin. And if you're wondering, here's the track system. It is cheap and nasty. It's quite shoddy, and it's got a coupling system like this, and I probably can't do it in front of camera. Oh, I somehow pulled it off. There you go. How dodgy is that? Well, I'm going to try and run these two trains, probably fraught with danger because they're pretty high speed. They're away. Whoa! There's been no! Ah! Ben 10's already stacked. He's lost his rear carriage. This is crazy. This is wild. But this is, oh no! Looks like Ben 10's carriage has come off the back one. Oh no! It's a disaster. Thomas is smashing Ben 10. Oh no! There's only the main carriage of Ben 10 left. Oh! Who's the winner of that stack? Well, I'm coming in to inspect the crash site. Thomas has been knocked off the rails, it looks like. This Ben 10 has stayed on track and possibly won. Maybe you'd say the opposite. Well, I've got to say, I'm having a lot of fun. I've only paid $5 per set here, and I'm smashing up trains. It's a whole ton of fun seeing these guys go. Oh no! Oh no! Oh, well, there goes Ben 10 again. I think the design of the front of his train is helping him do the stacking. I can't help myself. I'm going to come in for another go. It's tricky getting both of these going. Oh, no. Oh, sorry about that. Let's do another one. I'm a glutton for punishment and I'm having fun. Let's try and do it again. Oh, they're away. They're away. Action aplenty here. What is going to happen is just the greatest unknown. They seem to be fairly well matched speed at the moment. Ben 10's looking pretty good. Hasn't lost the carriage yet. I think Thomas is catching up. Thomas is catching up on Ben 10. Oh no, it's gonna, this next corner, the straight, oh! Whoa! Whoa! Couldn't you imagine it? Thomas has just pounded Ben 10, but Ben 10 is now, without the weight, catch up. This is exciting. This is really, really exciting. I don't know what else to say because I've run out of words. Is Thomas going to catch up there? I mean, is Ben 10 going to catch up? Don't know what to say. He's getting there very slowly. I mean, that's the best thing about this. So look at the speed these guys are going around at. In fact, it looks fairly evenly matched again. Just going out to wide. Not much is happening. Ben 10 is slowly catching up to Thomas. I mean, look at Thomas go. Ben 10 is getting closer and closer and closer. Whoa. Oh, any moment now, there's going to be contact. This is just too exciting. Oh, what is going to... Oh, again. The same sort of action. And I'm pretty sure that's because of the design of the front of that train. It's really good at just getting stuff and knocking it clear. Go, Ben 10. Oh, it's a bit different. Oh, this is a lot of fun. I'm feeling like a 5-year-old. Let's do it again. Let's see what happens. Go, Ben 10, and go, Thomas. Oh, they're away. It's fairly evenly matched at the moment. Who is going to get there? Thomas looks like it's catching up. Thomas does look like it's catching up on Ben 10. He's getting closer and closer. Go, Thomas. I'm sure very close to contact. What is going to happen this time? Oh! Ah, yes! Go! Oh, this is nasty. Nasty work there, Thomas. Oh, got rid of that carriage. Oh, once again, Ben 10 is free, and you probably find that now he's free of the weight. He'll end up catching up to Thomas in, quite a few revolutions. Well, a bit of time has elapsed, and sure enough, Ben 10 is catching up. He'll probably do the same old nose into the tail and take Thomas's carriages away. Any moment now, the suspense is killing me. It's me on the call. Yes! Oh, looks like that design is a winning formula to knock trains off the rails. Well, I possibly shouldn't be saying this, but I just had way too much fun putting those two knockoff toys together. The speed, I think, was the thing that was exciting about it. But anyway, there's a look at those two very inexpensive $5 knockoff toys. Well, moving right along, do you remember when I showed you this fake Thomas Big Loader set? Quite interesting. It only cost me $20. I think I purchased it just over a year ago, maybe a little bit more. Well, guess what? I found another variation of the same set. And I only picked this up because I can see in the box artwork we've got slightly different designs going on in the characters. And that's sort of very curious. But there's also some very strange box artwork as well. This set cost me $40. It's very interesting. You look at the way they've changed the wording here, the way they've spelt Thomas, and the fact that they've got rid of the Thomas and Friends logo from the box here. There's also this curious read here. Theseus, Thomas, and Peter work busily at the quarry. Well, in the equation we know this is Thomas, but who's Theseus or who's Peter? That's the mystery. You know what is interesting when you put the boxes side by side? That was the first one I purchased, and of course there's the Thomas and Friends logo there. And many people would be fooled if they saw that for sale online. They'd be thinking, well, that's a legitimate Thomas and Friends item. Whereas the one I've just purchased now, this is $40, it's double the price of the one before. Well, I can't see the Thomas and Friends logo there. It doesn't really smack of, well, something that you think is Thomas and Friends, although some people might get fooled by it, but maybe that's been changed because of some sort of legal action. Here is the back of the box artwork, and what is very interesting here, the only changes I can really see, it's quite simple. It's the logo and the way they're spelled Thomas is different on this new one. And I'm pretty sure that basically everything else on the back of that box, apart from those two things, is identical. Well, I've removed the characters from both of these cartons here. Let's take a look at the old knockoff, the old classic knockoff that I looked at a little while back. Look at those faces there. Let's go across to the new guys. Well, hey, who's got a moustache, who's got different eyebrows, and who's got pinpoint eyes? And maybe once I pull the two Thomases together, you can start to see just how bizarre this variation is. And I know, someone will say, well, why did you show Percy? Well, there he is. For some strange reason, that's reminding me of Victor. As for the rest of the toy and what I can see in the design and the pieces and where the paint scheme is, I can't see any other variation apart from what's changed on the face. But what is sort of interesting for me is, as a collector and a very keen collector of this stuff, seeing this tiny little bit of variation gets me fairly excited. Well, here's our last hurrah in this Dark Side video. This is a very strange set. It says Thomas and Friends Trackmaster. Not Trackmaster, Trackmaster. This set cost me $18, and what is very unusual about it is it's got a green Thomas the Tank. We all know that Thomas the Tank is not green, Percy is green, but when Thomas sometimes travels to the dark side, he can change colour. Also notable, there are two green Glarabel coaches. You ever notice that Annie doesn't appear on the dark side? It's always Glarabel. If anyone can explain that, I'd love to know. That's one of the great mysteries of the Thomas and Friends Dark Side. Just taking a look at the back of the box, and there's stuff there to tell you how it all goes together, where the power switch is, and all that goodness. And what is also very interesting, there seems to be a couple of variations on this theme. There's a Gordon set there. It looks like there's a Percy set. Looks like, what's that, a Henry set. And there's a Thomas set. And on the end of the carton, there's this very interesting picture here. Let's take a closer look. It's not a very clear picture, but what it does look like is some of the earlier Thomas and Friends. I think they're the take-along play sets, but it could be a bit of take-and-play track in between them. It's very hard to tell. Again, it's not a very clear picture. And on the top of the carton here, where the handle is, there's some clearer pictures of the characters in their series. That looks like Thomas and Henry, and on the other side, Gordon and Percy. Okay, let's reveal this dark side craziness. What was interesting about this set was it was sitting there all by itself. It wasn't as if there was whole piles of this one, and when I saw it had a green Thomas, I got excited. Okay, let's pick off the pieces one by one. This, of course, is the track. It's a copy of the classic Tommy track. It feels very good as a knockoff track. It feels fairly robust. It doesn't feel like it's got flashing that's going to cut you. I shouldn't say too many other positive things about it, or else you might get excited. If I bring out a bit of real Tommy track, can you tell one from the other? Well, can you? This one here is the dark side one. This is the real Tommy track. The way you can tell real Tommy track is the fact that it says Tommy on it. There'll be some licensing info somewhere else on it as well, up this end. The dark side stuff has got nothing like that on it. And if you've got a good perception of colour, the dark side stuff tends to be a slightly different shade of blue. There's the fake track in my hand there. If I bring up the real Tommy track, they keys together perfectly. This rather strange set comes with a gas station, the Ye Me gas station. Probably ripped out of some car set from somewhere, maybe recognise it. And it also comes with two pieces of fence and a rather ornate little tree. Well, if anyone's out there is a Harold fan, you better close your eyes, because this one's a shocker. It looks like a European version of Harold. When I say European, it's a European-styled helicopter, if you ask me. It's got some strange rotor blades. It's got a very strange face. I don't know, it's just very strange from top to bottom. There's a bit of rotor action if you really wanted to see it. Strange rotors indeed. And when inspecting the tail rotor, it's showing some classic dark side elements. Look at that, the toy's literally breaking apart on my hands. This is why these toys are deadly. Possibly the only thing stopping Harold from splitting in two is his little sticker face on the front. Well, say hello to Glarabel and Glarabel. These look like complete rips of the Tommy design. I don't know where the faces have come from. I don't know why they're green. But nevertheless, it's a very, very strange variation of a dark side Thomas set, and something that I'm going to really enjoy having in my collection. Well, here's Thomas, and let's take a very slow look at him in the round. This is a very, very unusual engine. And what was interesting recently, I was invited to show my Thomas collection, or part of it, at the local Cub Scouts. It was in connection with the Lions Club that helped me collect toys, and the dark side toys that I took along. I took real toys and dark side ones. The dark side toys really captured the children's imagination and had their interest far more than the real McCoy Thomas toys. The power switch is located at the back here instead of on top of the driver's cab. What's interesting about this Thomas is it's got some holes here, and there's one underneath the face, and there's the same hole on the other side there, which I'm not sure what they do. It's got the lamppost, so that's possibly telling us it's been ripped off an old Tommy design. The face is sort of curious. It's reminding me of a later design, but I can't quite pick exactly where that comes from. Well, there's an old Tommy 1992 Thomas versus this very strange green dark side. There's a 2005 Tommy versus this strange dark side, and 2005 was the end of the Tommy era with the Thomas toys. There's a 2006 Hit Toy Company Thomas versus the strange dark side one, and the Hit Toy Company Thomas era, which is quite short, is quite curious when you compare it to what's happening with the Mattel toys of today. There's a 2009, what I classify as Mattel Thomas with the big bulgy eyes versus the scary dark side green one. Again, in 2009, stamp underneath, and it's Mattel, there was this variation on the face. And now looking at the very latest Mattel Thomas, this is one that I've just picked up from the shops, there is this very slight variation again, and as people will classify this one as the full CGI faced Thomas. And to throw a spanner in the works, this is going to confuse you, there are two fake Thomases there, and everyone would agree that that new fake Thomas, that blue one, is a copy of the old Tommy Thomas, but even that face looks different to the face on this fake green Thomas. The other curious design change here is with the connecting rod. It doesn't freewheel because it's not the real McCoy Thomas stuff. That's different to what you would find on a real Thomas. I'll bring a real Thomas in here, and there you go, the real ones can freewheel and they're not powered up, and the connecting rod design is different. Well, I suppose the real test of where it's different is if when we look inside and throw a battery in. Well, let's see in here. I'm having trouble actually working out how to pull this thing apart. That's not the battery compartment, that's just the gears and the wheels. Anyway, we get to see how it works. There's the drive down from the electric motor. It goes to those gears there, onto that wheel set. While we're down here, very interesting indeed, there's no traction tyres on this toy either. So that's really showing you how dark side this one is. Even the other fake dark side ones I've got use traction tyres. I'll put this piece back on. I'm struggling to work out how to get into the battery area. And actually, on a bit of closer scrutiny, it looks like this top part pops off. Looks like there's tabs there, you squeeze it in. Oh, there we go. How simple was that? How stupid was I? And I can just throw a battery in here. It's just an LD battery again. There we go. Oh, look at that. She's up and running. It's fairly quiet sounding. And this, I don't know, this switch just feels a bit dodgy. Doesn't feel like it's a quality switch at all. But then again, we are dealing with the dark side. Well, let's put this back together. And it's probably worth noting for the fact that once I did get my head around how to pull it apart, how easy it does come apart. Remember that video, Thomas versus Thomas? I did every time I dropped the fake Thomas, it just busted open. The problem with toys like this is that children can get into them so easily. There was recently in Australia, a child died from swallowing a battery. It was actually a battery for a remote control on a TV. But children are very inquisitive. They'll get into things, they'll pull bits out, and sadly it can go wrong so easily. And that's the danger of these toys. And boy, I wish I could put this back together now. I bet you if I was 3 years old, I could snap it back together in a cinch. Oh dear, it's embarrassing. I bet just put it down and put the train set together, eh? Okay, I've got this Thomas knockoff set all together. And what's interesting, it's got 8 pieces of straight. That's curious because most train sets come with very little straights and a lot of curves. I've got the other toys we looked at, or some of the other toys looked at in this video. Up the back there, let's turn this beastie on. Tell you what, I already had a look at this. It's actually quite a sprightly little engine. There she goes, or he goes. Whoa! Go Thomas. Or dark side Thomas. You know, it's interesting watching this go around because your brain is so keen into seeing a blue Thomas and all of a sudden he's green. It sort of plays tricks on you. I'm sort of thinking I paid $18 for this. What's worthwhile in this set? Probably the track. There's a lot of straights. You know, straights are hard to come by. As for the train, if you're a bit of a collector and you'd like oddbod Thomas as well, you're going to get excited, but that's about it. Track's probably the only worthwhile thing here. I wonder if Thomas is going to come in and stop for any ye-me gas. It doesn't look like it. Let's do a bit of a speed comparison. I've got a, well, fairly recent Thomas here. It's pulling some Tommy carriages. Hope I got the right one. Annie first, Glarabel second. And I've got the, well, the green faker. Go green faker and go real McCoy Thomas. Well, I can tell you what, that real Thomas is the lower gearing, and the fake one, even though the batteries are starting to get a bit tired, is coming up for a bit of a kiss of the carriages. Watch out, this could get very, very untidy. I think on the corners there's a fair bit of pushing and shoving going on. It might get ugly. Well, come on guys, you've got to give it to me. You don't see this every day, do you? A fake green Thomas pushing along a real McCoy Thomas. You know, there is one major disadvantage to that green faker. The fact that it hasn't got traction tyres. If it had traction tyres, it would probably do a better job at trying to ram the real Thomas off the rails. Well, looks like we're in a bit of trouble now. Front wheels are off the tracks and we're struggling. Who knows, maybe the real Thomas can come along and give a decisive blow here. Whoa, how the table has turned. Whoa, it's happening, it's happening. That's a train wreck. The real Thomas has come in and cleaned up the nasty clone. Well, the real McCoy Thomas has come along and delivered a decisive blow. So once again, the nasty faker has shown its true colours. Old train wrecks and nasty business indeed. So there you go, there's the difference that those traction tyres make. They can come along and clean up anything else that's on the tracks. I suppose the other way to illustrate the strength of traction tyres is to just set them towards each other. Here we go. Who's going to win this one, do you reckon? Here they come. Whoa, look at that. The power of traction tyres. Look at that. The real Thomas is sending that faker to the tip. Now there's something you don't see every day. I'll tell you what, this is a very, very nasty little war going on here. Anyone who is backing the dark side, well, I dare say you've lost your money. Well, this could potentially go on for a long time, but I think we've got a very clear message of what's going on here and where the dark side is so wrong versus the real McCoy toys. As that death match continues in front of us, I'd like to say thank you for those who lasted till the end of this video. And as always, bye for now. Number 1. Number 2. Come on, number 2. This toy takes 4 AA batteries, and what was interesting when I bought these, they threw in one of those sweeteners, they throw in fake Duracell batteries. But what I will put in these is my trusty old Audi AA's. Oh, it's only 3. Fail. And I was talking about other brands, and for a very good reason, because I was leading to this. You also see the same sort of train set as a Ben 10 Protector of Earth. Good reason. You're probably thinking, where was Leo going with all that? Well, look at that. There's the same sort of design track. It's got some very interesting artwork, but what's very interesting is, and I've lost the plot again. There's going to be an accident, I feel, any moment. Oh no! Oh, this is too much fun. I'm going to have another go. I can't stop. I can't help myself. Oh. Well, let's haul this one out. What was unusual about this set? It was sitting there all by itself. I didn't see great multiples of this set. I'm having trouble here, as you can see. Come on. Oh, it's got to be on the fail reel.
Dad, Thomas, I like Tom Wayne.